Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the U.S. Liberty, watching the stars through the main screen. He had been in space for 15 years, but the sight still amazed him. The Liberty was humanity's best warship, armed with the latest weapons Earth could build. She was one of 12 ships that made up Earth's entire fleet. "Captain, we're getting a message from the Galactic Federation," said Lieutenant Amy Foster from her station. She was young but smart, one of the best tactical officers Jake had ever worked with. "Put it on screen," Jake ordered. The face of Admiral Lisa Parker appeared on the main display. She was on the command station at Kepler Prime, the neutral world where different alien species met to talk about important matters. Her expression was serious. "Jake, I need you and the Liberty to come to Kepler Prime right away. Something big is happening. The Federation Council is calling an emergency meeting." "What kind of emergency?" Jake asked. "The kind that could end everything we know," Lisa replied. "Just get here fast." The screen went dark. Jake looked at his crew. They had been together for 3 years, fighting pirates and protecting trade routes. They trusted each other completely. "You heard the Admiral," Jake said. "Amy, set course for Kepler Prime. Maximum speed." "Yes, sir," Amy replied, her fingers dancing over the controls. The Liberty jumped into hyperspace, leaving Earth far behind. Jake walked to his ready room, thinking about what could be so important. Humanity had joined the Galactic Federation only 5 years ago. Most alien species still saw humans as newcomers, barely advanced enough to travel between stars. 3 days later, the Liberty arrived at Kepler Prime. The planet was beautiful, with blue oceans and green continents. But Jake's attention was on the ships in orbit. There were hundreds of them, representing dozens of different species. He had never seen so many Federation ships in one place. "Captain, Admiral Parker is requesting you come to the surface immediately," said Commander Elena Rodriguez. She was human, but had been working with the Federation Science Division for 2 years. Jake trusted her judgment. "Amy, you have the bridge. Elena, you're with me." They took a shuttle down to the planet's surface. The Federation Council building was huge, made of crystal that seemed to glow from within. Inside, Jake saw aliens he'd only heard about in stories. The tall, graceful Zentani with their silver skin. The ancient Karathi who looked like walking trees made of energy. The proud Valerian warriors with their scaled armor. Admiral Parker met them at the entrance. She looked tired, older than Jake remembered. "Thank you for coming so quickly," she said. "The council is waiting." They walked into the main chamber. It was filled with representatives from across the galaxy. At the center was a holographic display showing star charts. Jake could see red markers spreading across the map like a disease. "The Devourers have returned," announced High Counselor Zephyr, the leader of the Zentani. His voice was like music, but Jake could hear the fear in it. "Devourers?" Jake asked Elena quietly. "Ancient machines," she whispered back. "They appeared 3,000 years ago and destroyed entire civilizations. The Federation barely survived by hiding until the machines left." "Why did they leave?" Jake asked. "Nobody knows, but now they're back." The holographic display changed, showing images of destroyed worlds. Planets that had been stripped bare, their atmospheres gone, their surfaces covered in strange metal structures. Jake felt sick looking at them. "The Devourer fleet is massive," continued High Counselor Zephyr. "Our scouts report thousands of ships, each one larger than our biggest warships. They move with perfect coordination, like parts of a single mind." "What do they want?" asked General Corvin, the Valerian military commander. "Everything," replied Dr. Zen, the Karathi scientist. "They consume entire civilizations. Not just the people and the planets, but the knowledge, the culture, even the memories." They add it all to their collective intelligence. How do we fight? Then, Admiral Parker asked. We don't know, High Counselor Zephyr admitted. Every weapon we used against them 3,000 years ago failed. They adapt to our tactics within minutes. Species that had never been defeated were destroyed in days. Jake studied the star charts. The red markers were moving toward the core. Federation worlds. Earth was directly in their path. What about evacuation? He asked. We're preparing evacuation ships for the most important worlds, Dr. Zen said. But there are billions of people across hundreds of planets. We can't save them all. Then we fight, Jake said simply. The alien leaders looked at him with surprise. Some seemed amused by the humans' confidence. Captain Morrison, High Counselor Zephyr said gently, your species is brave, but you don't understand. The Devourers destroyed civilizations that have been spacefaring for millions of years. Humanity has been in space for less than a century. Maybe that's why we can help, Jake replied. We think differently. We don't have millions of years of tradition telling us what's impossible. Admiral Parker smiled. That's exactly what I was hoping you'd say. The Council spent the next several hours planning their defense. They would set up 3 defensive lines. The first would try to slow the Devourers down. The second would be the main battle line. The third would protect the core worlds while evacuations continued. The Liberty and the other human ships were assigned to the third line. It wasn't because the Federation didn't trust human abilities. It was because Earth's fleet was too small and too valuable to risk in the front lines. As the meeting ended, Jake walked outside with Elena. The alien sun was setting, painting the sky in colors that didn't exist on Earth. Do you really think we can win? Elena asked. Jake looked up at the stars, were somewhere in the darkness. An ancient enemy was coming to destroy everything they loved. I don't know, he said honestly, but I know we're going to try. Back on the Liberty, Jake gathered his crew. He told them about the Devourers, about the threat to Earth and every other world in the galaxy. He watched their faces as the reality sunk in. So what do we do, Captain? Asked Chief Engineer Tony Chun. Jake looked at each of them. These were good people, brave people. They had followed him through dangerous missions before. Now he was asking them to face something that had destroyed civilizations. We do what humans do best, Jake said. We fight for what we believe in. We protect the people we love. And we never give up, no matter how bad things look. The crew nodded. They were scared, but they were ready. Outside, the stars waited. And somewhere among them, the Devourers were coming. 3 weeks later, Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Liberty, watching the biggest space battle he had ever seen. The Centauri system was full of Federation ships, thousands of them arranged in perfect formation. The first defensive line was about to face the Devourers. All human ships maintain position in the third line. Admiral Parker's voice came through the communication system. We're here to support and learn from this first engagement. Jake could see the other human ships nearby. The U's Defiance, commanded by Captain Roy Blake, and the UES Courage under Captain Nina Walsh. 8 other human vessels spread across the defensive formation. Earth's entire fleet was here, ready to fight for the galaxy. Captain, long range. Sensors are picking up something, Amy Foster said from her tactical station. Her voice was tight with worry. Put it on the main screen, Jake ordered. What appeared made everyone on the bridge go quiet. The Devourer fleet was unlike anything in the Federation databases. Massive black ships that seemed to bend space around them. They moved together like a school of fish, perfectly coordinated. Jake counted at least 5,000 enemy vessels. My God, whispered Elena Rodriguez. They're huge. The smallest ones are twice the size of our biggest ships. The Federation's first line consisted of 3,000 ships from a dozen different species. The Zintani crystal vessels gleamed like diamonds. The Karathi energy ships pulsed with inner light. The Valerian battle cruisers bristled with weapons. It was the most powerful fleet ever assembled. "All ships, this is Fleet Commander Azran," came the voice of the Zentani admiral leading the first line. "Enemy contact in 30 minutes. All vessels prepare for battle." Jake watched the tactical display as both fleets moved toward each other. The Federation ships spread out in a classic battle formation. The Devourers maintained their tight group, moving like a single organism. "Something's wrong," Amy said, studying her sensors. "The Devourer ships, they're not showing normal energy signatures. It's like they're sharing power between all the vessels." "What does that mean?" Jake asked. "I don't know, sir. I've never seen anything like it." The first shots were fired by the Federation fleet. Thousands of energy beams and missile salvos streaked across space toward the enemy. The weapons struck the Devourer ships and seemed to have no effect at all. The black vessels kept coming without even slowing down. Then the Devourers returned fire. Jake had seen many space battles, but nothing like this. The enemy weapons didn't look like normal energy beams or missiles. They appeared as waves of darkness that reached out and touched the Federation ships. When the darkness touched a vessel, the ship simply stopped working. Its lights went out, its weapons fell silent, and it began to drift. "What kind of weapon is that?" Elena asked in horror. "I don't think it's a weapon," Amy replied, her fingers working frantically over her controls. "I think they're somehow draining the power from our ships." The battle that was supposed to last hours was over in 20 minutes. The Federation's first line, 3,000 of the galaxy's most advanced warships, was completely disabled. Not destroyed, just turned into floating metal shells. "All ships retreat." Admiral Parker's voice came over the communication system. "Fall back to the second defensive line immediately." Jake watched in shock as the Devourer fleet moved through the disabled Federation ships. Some of the black vessels attached themselves to the Federation ships like parasites. Within minutes, the Federation vessels began to change. Their hulls turned black. Their shapes became angular like the Devourers. "They're not just disabling our ships," Elena said quietly. "They're converting them." The human fleet joined the retreat toward the second defensive line. As they traveled through hyperspace, Jake called a meeting with his senior officers. "We need to understand what we just saw," he said. "Amy, what did your sensors tell you?" "The Devourer ships are definitely linked together somehow," Amy replied. "They share power, information, maybe even consciousness. When one ship learns something, they all learn it instantly." "And their weapons?" Jake asked. "Not weapons exactly, sir. More like some kind of energy drain. They pull the power right out of our ships, then use that power to convert the vessels to their side." Chief Engineer Tony Chun spoke up. "If they can drain power, maybe we need to think about power differently. Most of our systems run on standard fusion reactors. Maybe we need something they can't drain." "Like what?" Jake asked. "I don't know yet, sir, but I'll start working on it." Elena had been quiet during the discussion. Now she looked up with worry in her eyes. "There's something else we need to consider," she said. "The Federation databases say the Devourers consume civilizations. Not just destroy them, but absorb their knowledge and technology. Every species they defeat makes them stronger." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "You mean they're learning from every battle?" "Exactly. By the time we face them, they'll know everything the Federation's first line knew. All their tactics, all their technology, all their weaknesses." The second defensive line was set up near the industrial world of Haven's Gate. This time, the Federation had assembled 5,000 ships, including many vessels that had been in reserve. The alien commanders had learned from the first battle and developed new strategies. Jake watched as the Federation scientists worked frantically to develop new weapons. They had studied the sensor data from the first battle and thought they had found a way to penetrate the Devourer defenses. "All human ships, take position in support formation," Admiral Parker ordered. "We're going to try something different." This time, the Devourer fleet arrived at Haven's Gate exactly as predicted. They had grown larger, now including the converted Federation ships from the first battle. Jake could see familiar designs among the black angular shapes. Federation vessels that had been twisted into something alien and hostile. "Federation fleet, this is Admiral Corvin," came the voice of the Valyrian commander leading the second line. "New weapons are charged and ready. All ships prepare for coordinated assault." The second battle began differently than the first. The Federation ships fired their new weapons, energy beams tuned to frequencies that should disrupt the Devourer power-sharing system. For a moment, it looked like the plan was working. Several Devourer ships flickered and slowed. Jake felt hope rising in his chest. Maybe they had found the answer. Then the Devourers adapted. Within minutes, the enemy ships had adjusted to the new weapons. The energy beams that had been effective became useless. Worse, the Devourers began using the same frequency weapons against the Federation fleet. "How is that possible?" Amy asked in disbelief. They adapted in real time. The second battle lasted an hour, longer than the first, but the result was the same. The Federation's second line was disabled and converted. 5,000 more ships joined the Devourer fleet. "All remaining ships, emergency retreat," Admiral Parker ordered. Her voice sounded defeated. "Fall back to the core worlds." As the human fleet retreated again, Jake looked at the tactical display. Of the 8,000 Federation ships that had faced the Devourers, none remained loyal to the Federation. All had been converted or destroyed. "Captain," Amy said quietly, "at this rate, there won't be a third defensive line. The Devourers will reach the core worlds in 2 weeks." Jake nodded grimly. Earth was one of those core worlds, directly in the enemy's path. Billions of people who had never heard of the Devourers were about to face an enemy that had never been defeated. "Sir," Elena said, "I'm getting reports from the other human ships. We lost the U-East Defender and the U's Guardian in the retreat. They were caught by Devourer pursuit ships." Jake closed his eyes. 10 human ships had come to fight for the galaxy. Now only 8 remained. And somewhere behind them, an unstoppable enemy was coming to destroy everything they loved. "Set course for Earth," Jake ordered. "We need to warn them what's coming." As the Liberty jumped into hyperspace, Jake wondered if humanity's first war with aliens would also be their last. The third battle happened at Haven's Gate, where the Federation made their final stand. Jake Morrison looked at the massive fleet surrounding them. 15,000 ships from across the galaxy, including emergency reserves and civilian vessels, converted to warships. It was every ship the Federation could gather. "This is it," Admiral Parker said over the communication channel. "If we lose here, there's nothing left between the Devourers and the core worlds." Jake studied the tactical display. The human fleet was down to 8 ships now, scattered among the Federation forces. The Liberty had been assigned to protect the evacuation transports carrying civilians from Haven's Gate. "Captain, the Devourer fleet is approaching," Amy Foster reported. "They're bigger than before. Our sensors count over 8,000 enemy vessels." Jake watched the enemy fleet emerge from hyperspace. The sight made his blood run cold. The Devourers had grown into a massive swarm of black ships, including all the converted Federation vessels from the previous battles. Ships he recognized, vessels that had once fought beside them, now twisted into angular monsters. "All Federation ships, this is High Admiral Zeren," came the voice of the Supreme Federation Commander. We have new weapons designed specifically to counter Devour adaptation. All ships prepare for final assault. The Federation had worked desperately for 2 weeks, developing weapons that change frequency randomly, making it impossible for the Devourers to adapt. Energy shields that shifted patterns every second. Missiles that split into smaller warheads mid-flight. Every trick the greatest minds in the galaxy could think of. Maybe this time will be different, Elena Rodriguez said hopefully. Jake wanted to believe her, but he had seen what the Devourers could do. Amy, keep our sensors focused on the enemy adaptation patterns. I want to know the moment they start countering our new weapons. The battle began with the Federation's new strategy. Instead of one massive assault, they attacked in waves, each wave using different weapons and tactics. The first wave struck with the new frequency-shifting energy beams. Several Devour ships were damaged, some even destroyed. It's working, Amy said excitedly. They're taking real damage. The second wave followed with the pattern shifting. Missiles. More enemy ships exploded in brilliant flashes of light. For the first time since the war began, the Devourers seemed to be losing. Jake felt hope growing in his chest. Maybe the Federation's greatest minds had finally found the answer. Then everything went wrong. The Devourers stopped attacking and pulled back into a defensive formation. For 10 minutes, they did nothing but absorb the Federation assault. Jake watched in growing horror as he realized what was happening. They're not trying to counter our weapons, he said quietly. They're studying them. What do you mean? Elena asked. Look at the pattern. They're letting us hit them, learning from every shot, every missile, every energy beam. They're figuring out how our new weapons work. Amy's sensors confirmed Jake's fear. Captain, the Devourer ships are sharing massive amounts of data. The entire fleet is analyzing our attack patterns. Then the Devourers counterattacked. What happened next was worse than Jake's worst nightmares. The enemy ships began using exact copies of the Federation's new weapons, but improved. The frequency-shifting energy beams came back at them with twice the power. The pattern-shifting missiles returned with 3 times the warheads. How is that possible? Elena asked in shock. They just saw these weapons for the first time. They don't just adapt, Jake realized. They improve everything they see. Every weapon we use becomes better when they use it against us. The Federation's third line began to crumble. The proud Zentani crystal ships shattered under their own improved weapons. The ancient Karathi energy vessels were drained by enhanced power siphon beams. The Valyrian battlecruisers exploded as improved missiles tore through their armor. All ships, emergency evacuation protocol. High Admiral Zarin ordered. Protect the civilian transports at all costs. Jake watched the tactical display as the Federation fleet disintegrated around them. Thousands of ships that had taken centuries to build were disabled or destroyed in minutes. The Devourers weren't just winning. They were learning and growing stronger with each victory. Captain, we're getting a priority message from the evacuation coordinator, Amy reported. The civilian transports are under attack. Jake turned to see Devourer ships breaking through the Federation lines, heading straight for the helpless evacuation vessels. Millions of civilians from dozens of species, fleeing their homes with nothing but the clothes on their backs. All human ships, this is Captain Morrison, Jake broadcast. We need to protect those transports. They're counting on us. The 8 remaining human ships formed a protective screen around the evacuation fleet. It was a hopeless gesture. 8 small warships against hundreds of Devour vessels. Jake couldn't watch innocent people die without trying. Incoming transmission from the U.S. Courage, Amy reported. Captain Nina Walsh's face appeared on the screen. Her ship was badly damaged, smoke filling her bridge. Jake, we can't stop them all. There are too many. We have to try, Jake replied. The human ships fought with desperate courage. They used every trick they knew, every unconventional tactic Jake's brother Danny had taught them during training. They flew through asteroid fields, using the rocks as cover. They flew directly into solar radiation storms to mask their heat. Signatures. They even rammed damaged Devourer ships with their shuttlecraft loaded with explosives. For an hour, the 8 human ships held the line. They saved 12 evacuation transports, carrying over 2 million civilians. But the cost was terrible. The U's courage was the first to fall. Captain Walsh's ship was swarmed by Devourer fighters and torn apart. The U's Defiance followed minutes later, Captain Blake's vessel exploding in a brilliant fireball as he rammed a Devourer cruiser. "Jake, this is Roy Blake," came the captain's final transmission. "Tell Earth we did our best." One by one, the human ships were overwhelmed. The U's valor, the U's honor, the U's justice. Each ship fought until the end, never surrendering, never giving up. "Captain, we're down to 3 ships," Amy reported with tears in her eyes. "Just us, the UES Ranger and the UE Sentinel." Jake looked at the tactical display. The main Federation fleet was gone. 15,000 ships reduced to scattered debris. The Devourer fleet had grown even larger, now including every vessel they had captured and converted. "All remaining ships, retreat to Earth." Admiral Parker's voice came over the communication system. She sounded exhausted and defeated. "There's nothing more we can do here." The 3 surviving human ships jumped into hyperspace, leaving behind the wreckage of the galaxy's greatest fleet. As they traveled toward Earth, Jake gathered his senior officers. "We need to face the truth," he said quietly. "The Federation is finished. Every conventional tactic has failed. Every weapon we've tried has been turned against us. So what do we do?" Tony Chun asked. Jake looked at each of them. His crew, his friends, the people he trusted more than anyone in the galaxy. They had followed him through impossible battles, never questioning his orders, never losing faith. "We go home," he said. "We warn Earth what's coming, and we figure out how to do something nobody else has managed." "What's that, sir?" Elena asked. Jake turned to look at the stars streaking past. Somewhere behind them, the Devourers were coming. An unstoppable force that had consumed civilizations for thousands of years. Every species that had ever faced them had been defeated and absorbed. "We figure out how to win," Jake said simply. The Liberty raced through hyperspace toward Earth, carrying the news that would change everything. The Federation was dead. The galaxy's greatest fleets were gone, and humanity was about to face the ancient enemy alone. In the darkness of space, the Devourer swarm continued its inexorable advance toward the core worlds, toward Earth, toward the final confrontation that would determine the fate of every living thing in the galaxy. Earth looked beautiful from space, but Jake Morrison could see the fear on every face around him. The 3 surviving human ships, the Liberty, the Ranger, and the Sentinel, hung in orbit around humanity's home world. Below them, billions of people went about their daily lives, not knowing that death was coming from the stars. "How long do we have?" Admiral Parker asked during the emergency meeting in Earth's command center. She had made it back to Earth on a damaged Federation transport, one of the few survivors from the final battle. 2 weeks, maybe 3, Jake replied. "The Devourers are taking time to convert all the ships they captured, but they'll be here soon." President Williams, Earth's leader, looked pale. "What about evacuation? Can we get people off the planet?" "There's no time," Admiral Parker said sadly. "We have maybe 100 transport ships. Earth has 8 billion people. We couldn't evacuate even 1% of the population." Jake watched the faces around the table. These were good people, leaders who had guided humanity through its first steps into space. Now they faced a choice no one should have to make. The Federation survivors are already running, reported General Adams, Earth's military commander. The Zentani, the Karathi, the Valerians, they're all heading for the outer rim with whatever ships they have left. They're abandoning the core. Worlds. Can we go with them? President Williams asked. Jake shook his head. They offered. Admiral Parker can take a few hundred people, the most important scientists and leaders. But they made it clear that Earth is doomed. And you disagree? The president asked. Jake looked out the window at Earth's blue skies. He thought about his childhood here, his family, his friends, all the people who had never asked to be part of a galactic war. I think if we run, we'll just die somewhere else, Jake said. The Devourers won't stop with Earth. They'll keep hunting until they've consumed everything. Someone has to make a stand. 3 ships against the entire Devourer fleet? General Adams asked. That's suicide. Maybe, Jake admitted. But my brother Danny has been working on something. Something that might give us a chance. Danny Morrison was waiting for them at the research facility outside the city. He looked tired, like he hadn't slept in weeks. His laboratory was filled with strange equipment, computers, and neural interface devices. Tell them what you told me, Jake said. Danny activated a holographic display. I've been studying the sensor data from all the battles. The Devourers aren't just machines. They're a collective consciousness. Thousands of individual ships controlled by a single mind. We already knew that, Admiral Parker said. Yes, but here's what we didn't know, Danny continued. Their collective mind works like a quantum computer. It processes information by considering every possible option simultaneously. That's how they adapt so fast and improve our weapons. How does that help us? President Williams asked. Danny smiled for the first time in weeks. Quantum computers have a weakness. If you overload them with too many variables, they can crash. The problem is, the Devourer Collective can handle millions of variables at once. So how do we overload it? Jake asked. By giving it something it can't understand or predict, Danny replied. Human consciousness. He pointed to the neural interface equipment. I've been working on this for months. It's based on the ship interface systems we already use, but much more advanced. It links human minds directly together while keeping individual thought patterns intact. Elena Rodriguez, who had been quiet during the briefing, stepped forward. You want to link the crews of our 3 ships together? Exactly, Danny said. The Devourer Collective thinks in perfect patterns. It expects logical, predictable responses. But human consciousness is chaotic. We dream, we have emotions, we make decisions based on instinct and feelings. If we link our minds together while fighting, we create organized chaos. Organized chaos? Admiral Parker asked. Jake understood. We fight as a group, but we think as individuals. The Devourers won't be able to predict what we'll do because we won't know ourselves until we do it. There are risks, Danny warned. The neural link is experimental. It might not work at all, or it could damage your minds permanently. Jake looked at the other ship captains. Roy Dixon of the Ranger and Beth Adams of the Sentinel. Both were good officers, people he had served with for years. I'm willing to try, Captain Dixon said. My ship, my crew, we're all in. Same here, Captain Adams agreed. We can't let them destroy Earth without a fight. Admiral Parker studied the neural interface equipment. Even if this works, you're still talking about 3 ships against thousands. The odds are impossible. The odds have been impossible. From the beginning, Jake replied. But we're still here. Over the next week, Danny worked frantically to install the neural link systems on the 3 ships. The equipment was complex, requiring modifications to the ship's computer cores and the crew's neural interfaces. Jake watched his crew as they prepared for the final battle. Amy Foster worked with Danny to integrate the tactical systems with the neural link. Tony Chum modified the ship's power systems to handle the new equipment. Elena Rodriguez studied everything they knew about Devourer technology, looking for any weakness they could exploit. "Captain," Amy said during one of the test runs, "I'm getting strange readings from the neural link. It's like the system is creating connections we didn't design." "What kind of connections?" Jake asked. "I don't know, sir. But when all three ship crews are linked, something new emerges. It's not just our individual thoughts working together. It's something more." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. They were playing with forces they didn't understand, using experimental technology against an enemy that had never been defeated. If they were wrong, if the neural link didn't work, Earth would fall and humanity would be extinct. On the day the Devourers arrived, Jake stood on the bridge of the Liberty, watching the enemy fleet emerge from hyperspace. There were thousands of them now, a vast swarm of black ships that blotted out the stars. All the Federation vessels they had captured and converted, plus their original fleet, plus new ships they had built from the wreckage of defeated civilizations. "All ships, this is Captain Morrison," Jake broadcast to the Ranger and the Sentinel. "Activate neural links. It's time to see if organized chaos can beat perfect order." The neural link came online, and suddenly Jake could feel the minds of 60 other people. Not their thoughts exactly, but their presence, their emotions, their determination. Amy's tactical brilliance, Tony's engineering insight, Elena's scientific knowledge, multiplied across three ships. "My God," Captain Dixon's voice came through the link. "I can feel all of you. Focus on the mission," Jake replied, his voice carrying to all three crews simultaneously. "We protect Earth, whatever it takes." The Devourer fleet moved toward Earth in perfect formation. Thousands of ships working as one mind, unstoppable, inevitable. They had crushed every fleet that had ever opposed them, but they had never faced organized chaos. "All ships," Jake said, his words reaching every crew member through the neural link. "Let's show them what humans can do." The three ships broke orbit and flew directly toward the Devourer fleet. Three small vessels against thousands of enemy ships. It should have been over in seconds. Instead, something impossible happened. The battle for Earth was about to begin. The neural link felt like electricity running through Jake Morrison's mind. He could sense every crew member on all three ships, 60 souls connected in a way that had never been tried before. Through the link, he felt Amy's tactical calculations, Tony's engineering solutions, and Elena's scientific analysis all at the same time. "Devourer fleet is in attack formation," Amy reported, her words reaching every connected mind instantly. "They're moving exactly like they did in the previous battles." Jake watched the enemy approach. Thousands of black ships in perfect coordination, a single mind controlling them all. They had crushed every fleet in the galaxy using the same tactics, the same overwhelming power. "All ships, begin evasive pattern Morrison 7, Jake ordered. What happened next confused the Devourers completely. The three human ships didn't follow any logical flight pattern. They twisted and turned through space in ways that made no sense. The Liberty flew straight up while the Ranger dove down, and the Sentinel spun sideways. Yet somehow they worked together perfectly. Through the neural link, Jake could feel what each pilot was thinking without knowing what they would do next. It was organized chaos, just like Danny had predicted. The Devourer fleet fired their first salvo. Thousands of energy beams and dark matter projectiles filled space where the human ship should have been. But the humans weren't there anymore. They had moved in directions that no computer could calculate because they had been decided by pure instinct and emotion. "Their targeting systems can't lock on to us," reported Captain Dixon from the Ranger. "We're moving too randomly." "No," Elena said through the link, her scientific mind analyzing the battle in real time. "We're not moving randomly. We're moving in patterns that only human consciousness can create." The three ships swooped through the Devour formation like dancers, firing their weapons at targets that seemed to be chosen at random. But through the neural link, each shot was perfectly coordinated. They hit weak points in the enemy formation that no tactical computer would have identified. The Devourers adapted quickly, as they always did. Their ships began firing in wider patterns, trying to cover all possible escape routes. But the humans weren't following possible routes. They were following impossible ones. Jake felt the collective consciousness of his species flowing through the neural link. 60 people thinking as one while remaining completely individual. It was like music played by musicians who had never heard the song before but somehow knew every note. "Captain, we're actually hitting them," Amy said with amazement. "Their shields are failing." Through the link, Jake could sense the confusion in the Devourer collective. For the first time in thousands of years, they faced something they couldn't understand or predict. The human ships fought with a combination of careful planning and wild improvisation that broke every rule of space combat. The battle raged for hours. The three human ships danced between thousands of enemy vessels, striking at weak points and disappearing before the Devourers could respond. They used Earth-Moon as a slingshot, bounced energy beams off asteroids, and even flew through the sun's corona to mask their heat signatures. But they were still only three ships against thousands. "Hull breach on Deck 7, Tony reported from engineering. "We can't take much more of this." The Sentinel was badly damaged, her engines failing. The Ranger had lost most of her weapons. The Liberty was running on emergency power. They had fought better than anyone thought possible, but the end was coming. That's when Elena made her discovery. "Jake, I've been monitoring the Devour communication frequencies," she said through the neural link. "Their collective consciousness operates on quantum wavelengths similar to our neural patterns." "What does that mean?" Jake asked while dodging another energy blast. "It means we might be able to do more than just confuse them," Elena replied. "We might be able to disrupt their entire network." Through the neural link, Elena shared her idea with everyone simultaneously. It was desperate, probably impossible, and would require someone to fly directly into the Devourer command ship while broadcasting human consciousness directly into their collective mind. "I'll do it," Captain Adams said from the Sentinel. "My ship is too damaged to keep fighting anyway." "Beth, no," Jake protested. "It's the only way," she replied calmly. "And someone needs to tell a story of how humanity saved the galaxy." The Sentinel broke away from the other two ships and flew straight toward the massive Devourer command vessel. Captain Adams opened all communication channels and began broadcasting everything she could through the neural link. Her memories, her emotions, her dreams, her fears. The full spectrum of human consciousness flowing directly into the enemy's collective mind. The effect was immediate and devastating. The Devourer collective had spent thousands of years consuming ordered, logical civilizations. It was designed to process and absorb predictable patterns of thought. But human consciousness was different. It was chaotic, emotional, contradictory, and beautiful, all at the same time. The collective mind couldn't process what it was receiving. Human emotions crashed into its quantum processors like a virus attacking a computer. Love, hate, hope, fear, joy, sorrow, all the messy contradictions of human experience flooded through the network. The Sentinel crashed into the command ship and exploded, but the damage was already done. The neural broadcast had created a feedback loop in the Devourer collective. Every ship in their fleet received the same chaotic human thoughts simultaneously. Jake watched in amazement as the enemy fleet began to shut down. One by one, the black ships went dark and started drifting. Their perfect coordination was broken. Their collective consciousness had crashed like an overloaded computer. "It worked," Amy whispered through the neural link. "They're all offline." The remaining human ships flew through the disabled Devour fleet. Thousands of vessels that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia were now nothing more than floating metal. The ancient enemy that had never been defeated was finally silent. But Jake felt no celebration, only sadness for Captain Adams and her crew. Through the neural link, he had felt them die, felt their sacrifice save not just Earth, but every living thing in the galaxy. 3 months later, Jake stood in the same council chamber on Kepler Prime, where he had first learned about the Devourers. But now the room was filled with hope instead of fear. Representatives from across the galaxy had come to thank humanity and learn about the neural link technology. "Captain Morrison," High Counselor Zephyr said, "your species has given the galaxy a great gift. Not just victory over the Devourers, but a new way of thinking about consciousness and cooperation." Jake accepted the praise politely, but his thoughts were elsewhere. He was thinking about Captain Adams and all the others who had died fighting an impossible war. He was thinking about his brother Danny, whose experimental technology had saved civilization. Most of all, he was thinking about what came next. The galaxy was free, but it needed to be rebuilt. The neural link technology offered new possibilities for cooperation between species, ways of working together while maintaining individual identity. It was, Jake realized, very human. Outside the council chamber, Earth's sun shone through the crystal walls. Somewhere out there, the Liberty waited to take him home. The war was over, but humanity's real journey among the stars was just beginning. They had stood alone against the darkness and won. Now they would help light the way forward for everyone. The galaxy belonged to the living again, and humanity had earned its place among the stars not through conquest, but through the courage to be themselves when it mattered most.